And if that intro song doesn't get you freaking pumped, I don't know what else will. We can thank Slick Will and the Layabouts for the new music. You can follow him on X at Slayabouts, SLAY Abouts. You can spell. I don't want to do all that for you. You're pretty smart here. Welcome to the show. We are back, MFers. We are so back. And we got Doni Anthony, a.k.a. Donnie the Misfit here. First show back in like 10 months. What is up?
Man, what's up? The government's corrupt and it won't stop. It don't sleep.
It doesn't ever sleep. And neither do I, apparently, because I've been up for days, not because of drugs, but because of what the government does to us every single day, which is why we are back after 10 months. I couldn't take it anymore. There was one single instance that really radicalized me to come back, and that was when our commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, decided to run cover for pedophiles. Full stop. We are not doing this in the United States of America. We're done. We're done doing this. And we're here to talk about all the things that are liberty and all the things that are things that you don't necessarily know about in the world that are happening right now. You guys wouldn't even believe what's going on. Donnie's been working on some crazy shit. Donnie, thank you for doing this. And thank you for being my first guest back. This makes it very comfortable for me because I've been actually really nervous. I'm sweating bullets right now, if I'm being quite honest, because it's been so long. But thank you so much. What is up?
No, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be one of the first people, be the first to come back with you. You know, I'm really just so fed up with the government and local, state, every branch of government, and we're so distracted by other things. What they tell you, look this way, look that way, look this way, but we don't understand our rights are being scraped away right beneath our feet, and we don't even know it. Things going on in Congress, y'all don't know about. Cases going on across the United States, y'all know about. But I think the first one we're going to talk about is Aaron Spencer in Arkansas, him protecting his daughter.
Yes. This is actually something that really, it actually goes with what really radicalized me to come back to doing this show with the pedophilia nonsense. And, you know, we're going to bust right into this. And I'm actually going to pull up a story by yo man, Mr. Jeff Charles. Jeff, if you're watching, let
me tell them how I know this guy.
Yes,
this light is so bright. I'm trying to fix it now. I look like you can only see my teeth. I'm messing up stuff over here. So, you know, we started a farm. We had chickens, right? And we wanted some livestock guardian dogs. But the livestock guardian dogs are not very cheap if you get like full bred breeds like Great Pyrenees. So we're looking online, and I was kind of skeptical because Craigslist, you can be scammed. It could be a long drive. We drove like 3.5, 4 hours to pick up these pups, so we can raise them and so they can take care of our chickens. So we get there. By the way, it's my birthday. It's about a year ago. So we went and got the puppies around this time last year. The wife, the husband was so nice. They had turkeys, they had goats, and all kinds of. There's a small homestead, right? They had chickens. So the dogs were already growing up with livestock. So I was just going to get one dog, and they were going to charge $50 for it. And then they're like, you know what? Go ahead. Him himself, Mr. Spencer, him himself said, you know what, go ahead and take another one. It'll be better for them to leave together and adjust to their new home without an additional charge. Very kind, pick up the puppy, smiling, carrying his turkeys. And I had no idea he was going through this. No idea. And so then, you know, I'm thinking, you know, I want to reach out to them because, you know, it's been about a year since we got the pups, send them a video of the update, what they look like now. And then we're talking, and she's like, I looked it up, looked up Google. So I guess it's kind of hard to say to someone you sold a dog to look at the story. So I look it up, and my heart stops. I'm like, how can something like this happen to such good people? Like, I'm telling you, this man and his wife were so kind, even after the fact that, you know, they didn't just, you know, ghost us. If we had questions, they would respond to us, help us out and everything. And that's how it went down. I was like, man, I wish we lived closer to these people, because you imagine like how we're trying to decentralize our food and everything like that. But that was my experience with them. And when I saw this, it cut deep, and we're like, we gotta get the word out, help them get some more traction. in a kind of sense, is a character witness, right? We got to witness who they are as people and families. And by the way, they homeschool.
Which I love hearing that. I love hearing all the above that you just said. They sound like amazing folks if they're raising livestock and they're, homeschooling their children and just trying to be, good people and keep to themselves. That's like the anarchist way. Honestly, they're living a very anarchist life. And I am not going to knock them for trying to do so. Let's get in the comments real quick, just because I'm missing some of these. And oh my gosh, Lady Liberty, good to see you back on the air, mate. We miss you. It is great to be back, and I will have you on soon. I promise you that. Let's see.
What's up, Lady Liberty?
Lady Liberty, Australia, except she's Lady Liberty, Texas now. Welcome to America. You've been here for a while.
Hey.
When he says my volume was up way too loud in my headphones. Yeah, we got some headbanger shit going on. Thank you so much, Slick Will and the Layabouts. They are great. They're actually, he's a great Liberty page too, man. He's been following me for a while. And then Terry says, hi, Sean and Donnie. Great to see you guys. Terry, I can't wait to get your radical ass on here. Can't wait. It's going to be great.
Terry.
And then we got, Freedom. Make sure you share and subscribe. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe to all things. It'll help me out tremendously, and it's free for you to do. Just like, share, follow, and subscribe. We got to get the word out. We got the message of liberty. We are going to have Liberty Solutions. We're going to be doing a lot of things on this show, but thank you so much, everybody. But let's dig into this. We got to dig into this because, well, we kind of have a lot going on in this show. I'm going to read your man Jeff's story that he wrote on X about this probably about a week ago now. But this is Jeff Charles on Twitter. In July 2024, the Arkansas natives found out their 13-year-old daughter was being groomed and sexually abused by a 67-year-old man, Michael Fossler. He had been grooming their daughter for months before abusing her. He was charged with 43 felony counts, including sexual assault, indecency with a child, and possession of child pornography. Despite the evidence, the Lonoke County judge granted him a $50,000 bail, allowing him to walk free while awaiting trial. Months later, on October 8th, 2024, Aaron and Heather awoke in the middle of the night to find their daughter missing. Aaron quickly began searching frantically around town and found her in Fossler's truck on a back road. He followed the vehicle, flashing his lights to make it stop. He managed to run the truck off the road at an intersection and confronted Fossler. An argument ensued. Fossler, who had violated no contact order, lunged toward Aaron while holding an object. Aaron, a veteran, fired his pistol, killing Fossler on the spot. He immediately called 911 to report the shooting. Instead of being hailed as the father protecting his child, Aaron was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Judge Barbara Elmore sealed the case and issued a sweeping gag order that barred Aaron, his lawyers, and his family from speaking publicly. No hearing was held before she did so. The Arkansas Supreme Court later vacated that gag order in scathing opinion, calling it a plain, manifest, clear, and gross abuse of discretion. Justice Nicholas Brony, or Bronny, whatever. Brony went further, noting that the same circuit court that had issued a gag order also granted Michael Fossler's release on bail, the very act that allowed this tragedy to unfold. He also recommended that Judge Elmore be removed from the case. Aaron asked for a grand jury to review the case, but the court denied his request. The trial is set to begin in January in Lonoke County, the same courthouse where the system failed his family once before. Aaron and Heather are fighting not only for his freedom, but for every parent who believes in protecting their children when the justice system refuses to. Aaron could be facing up to 30 years in prison. Wow.
When I say I'm sick of the government, I mean it.
This is okay. So let's pull this back a little bit. Like I said, the president of the United States is still actively running cover for an elite pedophile ring that has global implications to it, right? Now we have here at a state matter, the state is now protecting the same type of pedophiles. So where do we go from here? Because honestly, the state does not believe in protecting children whatsoever, whether it be from the federal standpoint or the state standpoint, or even maybe from the local standpoint. I don't know. But this is absolutely an atrocity to the legal system, is an atrocity to children. And to be quite frank, the man is a hero for protecting his child. Not only did he protect his child from that person, he protected other people from this happening again. Like he protected other girls from this happening. This wasn't the first time this guy did this, is what I'm getting at.
Correct.
So take it, Donnie. I want you to take it because you know you're in.
So, what irritates me is my first question was, when you're being charged for a second-degree murder, that's considered like a capital punishment or a heinous crime. So you're supposed to be given a grand jury. So I was like, well, why did you guys not get a grand jury? They go, well, there's something in Arkansas where it makes it to where you don't have to have a grand jury. So this is a prosecution doing this, which is actually false. So let me read you guys what Arkansas's Constitution actually says. The Arkansas Constitution in 1874 restates that protection nearly word for word the federal Fifth Amendment, making the requirement for not just federal law, but also a state constitutional law. That means that the refusal to allow a grand jury indictment is not a mere procedural oversight. It is a constitutional violation of both the U.S. Constitution and the Arkansas Constitution. Refusing a grand jury undermines the process of law and strips errant of his recognized rights in both federal and state constitutional history. So I text that to her, and she was like, "That's what my lawyer argued." But they're acting like Arkansas doesn't have to follow that rule. Now, this isn't public information, so I can't state it. But it's something. Think about local corruption and how local will cover up for certain people if they have a relationship with them. Just leave it there. I can't give out too many details, but this is local corruption. This judge obviously is biased and should be recused and needs to recuse themselves, because what kind of unbiased judge will sit there and gag pretty much the victims and then turn around and allow prosecution to try someone without a grand jury indictment? The reason being is because a grand jury wouldn't indict them. Can you imagine? Can you see a grand jury indicting him? Absolutely not. The public is actually on his side.
And that's the insane part. Like, you have the inherent right to protect your family. You have the inherent right to protect your property. And now, like Frederick Bastiat said it best himself. Bastiat, if you ever read the book, The Law, and if you haven't, you really should read it. But the law is only supposed to protect life, liberty, and property. And anything outside of that is tyranny. So the fact of the matter is that the state is actually protecting this man. And you know what? This is my podcast, and I'll come out and say it. This man was friends with people who are in power, which is why they protected him. I'm not going to say who he was friends with, and I'm not going to say how I know what I know. But I do know this, that he had connections to people in power, which is why they protected him the first time, and which is why they're protecting him again. This is unacceptable behavior, okay? Because number one, if anybody, I don't have children, I didn't bring them into this world, but I do have nieces, and if anybody even looked at them the wrong way, I would murk them on the spot and not lose a wink of sleep over it, and I would be justified in doing so. And now you're talking about a parent protecting their child from being raped, literally raped. This is a 13-year-old child he's protecting from being raped. And this has happened before. And now he's facing 30 years in prison for second-degree murder. If anything, it's a crime of passion. And those are old laws. They don't even have those anymore. I actually know somebody from way back in the day that got charged with crime of passion laws. They had murdered a man they found in bed with their wife. and he killed that man. Okay. And because of crime and passion laws, he got a much lower sentence than said whatever. But I'm not even saying that should be in play here. That man is a hero. He did the right thing. And even
it's
so,
self-defense, right?
Yes, it's self-defense.
It's self-defense because one, he's protecting his daughter, and he came with an object towards Aaron. And give me one second. I need to lift my laptop. It looks like I'm sleeping. Keep going. Give me 1 second.
But anyways, so you look at all this, and even the Holy Bible, I believe it's Matthew 18:6 says something along the lines of, if you try to harm a child, you're better off just tying a milestone around your neck with a rope and jumping into the sea. The Bible says that. So now the government is saying
Jesus,
that they are higher than the Almighty Bible, the Almighty God himself. They're saying they're higher than that by trying to charge this man for this. This is complete and utter tyranny. It is disgusting and it is vile. And we need to put a stop to shit like this immediately, because I'm going to keep saying it. The man is a hero. He protected his daughter. He protected his family. And everybody has the right to do so. I don't care what these laws and all this bullshit says anymore. They keep, by the day, it's always something else. Oh, a little bit more about self-defense. You can't, defend yourself in this, that, or the other predicament. No, full stop. You have the right to defend yourself if your life is in danger or your family's life is in danger. If a person, breaks into your home to attack you or your family, you are within your rights to end that person's life. Your personal belongings become more important than that person's life the moment they break into your home. We have to stop this. We have to stop this government tyranny saying we can't protect ourselves. You're seeing so much shit going on in the UK and Australia and other countries that are getting rid of gun laws. And these criminals just run amok and do whatever they want.
But check this out, though. When it comes to your property, like you say, I have chickens, right? And someone wants to come on my property and kill my chickens or take my chickens, right? The thing isn't that I value my property more than them. They value my property more than their own life.
Yes. And so, we have to be better as citizens in policing ourselves when it comes to stuff like this. Because the government, the state, is not the answer to what is happening here. They're protecting the bad guys and criminalizing the good guys. This is what they're doing. How do you even how do you make this okay? This isn't okay. You don't make this okay.
But Bud, check this out though. So in California, they keep on trying to pass a bill to protect children from pedophiles, and the Democrats keep on not passing the bill in California. But they can introduce bills to limit the amount of roosters someone can own, and introduce those kind of bills. There's to protect animals instead of protecting children. It's an upside down world.
It is an upside down world, and it is crazy that they are protecting animals before they protect children. Human beings should be protected before any animal. Like all these PETA people and all this shit, it's getting ridiculous. And all this animal rights stuff. Like, look, I have dogs. I have a cat. Like, I love them like they're my family, okay? But they don't have more rights than I do. That's for damn sure. I'm a human being. I'm a tax-paying citizen to this country. I have rights. They don't. They are my property at the end of the day.
Shoot, if they have rights, go ahead and get tax write-offs on them like children. Go ahead and get free insurance on them like children. Let them vote like humans. If we're going to go that full route, let's do that, because then we have more votes in our household. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, but they won't do it. They definitely don't want you writing shit off. Take it from the self-employed guy. They have withered away a lot of write-offs that have been tried and true for many years, and now all of a sudden you're sitting here going, man, is self-employed is that the greatest idea in the world? Because I'm not too sure it is anymore, when it comes to the write-off shit. But Donnie, I mean, this is the world we're living in right now. And I don't really have the answers other than, You know, if you want this pedophilia shit to stop on some real shit, honestly, you start hanging these sick fucks in the middle of the streets in front of their family and peers. That's how you end this shit. You start, and you know, all these anarchists and libertarians, oh, we're against capital punishment, blah, blah, blah. I'm not. You hurt a child, you get strung up in that tree and you dangle there in front of your family and peers. They're going to watch you die for being a sick bastard. That's what we need to start doing to these sick people.
I mean, like you said earlier, like you said, Jesus said, anyone who hurts any of the children that believe in me, they're better off having milestones tied around their neck and thrown in the ocean. That's what the word says. And we have this country where they claim that it was founded on Christianity. And as we keep looking and watching how the government operates, it looks to me like the government operates for Satan. Because if you think about it, why would they say what's good is good and what's evil is evil? Because protecting your family is your duty. Biblically, it's your duty to protect your family, correct? But then you're punished for protecting your family. So that's the opposite. For me, that's more evidence that Satan runs all the governments around the world. That's when Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. And when Satan was trying to offer him and get him to, hey, do this, you can have all the kingdoms. And Jesus said, that kingdom's not of this world. Look at who runs the world. That's just more proof.
And you know, that's a whole other like conversation, like without getting too churchy on y'all, but we need to get back to Christ. You know, I know a lot of my followers aren't Christians or believers or whatever, but you know, I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ. And I say that proudly. He saved my life. Jesus saved my life. I almost died in 2022 and 2023. I almost died twice and I'm still here. I even prayed to him when I was laying in my hospital bed in so much pain. I said, please either take my life or take this pain. And he took the pain. I'm still here. So I'm here for a reason. Okay. And we need to get back to.
Though,
go ahead.
I will say though, even if you're not a believer, there's something there where people do want to protect children. You can be atheist, you can be whatever, Muslim, whatever, in the sense, the children are not supposed to be hurt, right? It just depends on, most people know that not to hurt people, not to hurt children, and they're supposed to protect children. So there's certain people in this world who see the vulnerable, which children are more vulnerable, correct? And they want to target them. And we as followers or non-followers, our duty is to protect the children, regardless. Like Sean saying, I don't have kids either. If someone else's child is being hurt, you have a right to extend your rights to protect yourself, to protect that child. And we got to get back to caring about each other, getting back to our community. I believe it's amazing that we have people like Buds in Reality and a lot of great people like Free out there and Terry and Jeff. And I can just name a lot of people who actually care about other human beings and want to help protect people. But I'm just really happy that the people saw the headlines and didn't jump on board, because normally the media uses propaganda to make you turn against your fellow citizens and condemn them to the worst sentencing we could possibly get. I'm very proud of many Americans that are standing with Mr. Spencer and his family. I know that Jeff's article, you may share it. They have his donation link in there. And then so he also found a solution to his problem as well. Now, do I believe in running for office anymore as a solution? I don't. But the sheriff department, the sheriff was running unopposed, and he wants to protect his town. He wants to protect the children of the town. He wants people's rights protected. So his solution was to run for sheriff as well. I believe he has a Twitter account, but I don't remember his handle. But I'm quite sure if you guys search his name on Twitter, you can be able to find it. Also, Jeff has that article with details, and I'm quite sure that Bud will share the link to donate to their campaign, for their legal fees. Excuse me. But he is also running for sheriff. Isn't that badass though? He said, "Oh, you gonna try to lock me up? I'm running for sheriff."
I'm gonna check this out. Amity says plus 200 points for Donnie for shouting out the amazing Free and Terry. This could be another Are You Smarter Than a Politician show. We can do some point system on here someday. I love what those guys do over there. It's been a lot of fun to be on there a couple times. But,
thank you.
Look, the gentleman is running for sheriff, and I don't see any better person to run for sheriff than somebody like that, honestly, because he sees the law the way it should be, and he sees that personal protection, whether it be, albeit yourself or your family or whatever it is, he understands that. And those are the types of sheriffs you need in town, especially when you're fighting, tyranny from the federal level. Like local nullification owns my heart. Like that's near and dear to my whole heart. And when you have sheriffs like that, it makes it much easier to do said things. And that's the route we need to be heading in. And we'll touch on that later in the show, actually, because there's something that's going to, come into all this that comes into play. But, we're almost at a half hour right now, 233 viewers right now. Holy smokes, man. I'm very humbled right now. Seriously, that's a lot for a first show after 10 months, man. I love you guys. Thank you. This is why I keep doing this, honestly, is because of you guys. So, we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing the damn thing. I might not, promise a show every week because life is life and that comes first, but I'm going to get a lot of content out for you guys. You can guarantee that. Now, that being said, you're actually working. Oh, yeah.
One more thing. On a conclusion on that part of the discussion, I will say that these people are followers of Christ. They love the Lord. I could hear it in Heather's voice. And while I was talking to her, I'm sorry, I'm getting teared up. I know God put us in each other's life for a reason. You know what I mean? So just think of the timing. I went 3.5-4 hours away to pick up these pups. And then to find out this was going on with them at that time, and he had a smile on his face, like nothing was wrong. And so I just want to say they love the Lord, and we will stand with them the best we can, any way we can. And if we can't go to their courthouse when they have court, let's do it.
Oh yeah, I am down for that. And don't get all sappy on me on here, because I'm going to get all sappy too. I already was like fighting the urge to fight tears when I read that story the first time, because this whole nonsense with children and not protecting them in this country has gone way too far, and they're way too far gone. And these people need to start being put in their places. And I don't care whether it's just your average Joe walking down the street who thinks you're going to get away with something, or any of these clowns in DC who are at Epstein Island touching on little girls. They all deserve the same treatment. Tree ornaments in the streets. Ugh.
The government is violating contract. I mean, I thought you're supposed to protect people.
I mean, the federal government and the government's job in general is to protect our rights, protect our borders, and leave us alone. That's literally their job. Nothing else. Nothing else is their job. It's those three things: protect your rights, protect your borders, and leave us alone. And they can't
and manage themselves.
Yeah, and comply to a piece of parchment paper that they're supposed to. But I digress. Anyways, I digress. What up, Chad? Chad says, "What up?" He's finally back on here. That's one of my best buddies.
What up, Chad?
And then we got, Terry, you guys keep doing what you do. We are always better together. Thanks a million for including Free and I. Oh, we got Freedom. Thanks, Donnie. Honored to be in that group. Oh my goodness, you guys are too awesome. But now I had told some people that you were actually working on this case that we were just talking about, and you're not. So I do apologize for that, but you do have an inside scoop on it because of, you've been in contact with these folks, and that's amazing. But now you've been working on something. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'll just give it advice. You know what I mean? Like when I see something wrong, I give advice. Like they have lawyers. They're expensive lawyers. I'm just a resource if anyone needs anything. But their lawyers have tried what I've discussed. One other thing I would ask what the lawyer could do is do a writ of mandamus, where you go to court and you have a judge say, does this a government official has this authority to do this, yes or no, according to the law? And the judge will determine either yes or no. Either force them to do something or force them to stop doing something. They could do that and then force them to have a grand jury, force the prosecution to give him a grand jury. But I haven't got to talk to her this week, so I'm gonna text her that idea to see what her lawyer thinks about that. But other than that, I'm just somebody they know, coincidence, and help share the story, help share their donation link so they can get more funding, because this is a lot of money. It's a lot of money, especially think about a murder case. That's a lot of money.
We're talking like over $100,000 they're going to need to fight this. Honestly, I know the legal system. I know how it works. I know how much lawyers cost, unfortunately. And he's going to need a lot of money, like a lot of money. So anything you could do to help would be great. I'll post a link on the thread of this show after the show or whatever. I have the link, on the give, send, go, because anything helps. Anything really helps. And if you really truly believe in defending your family and your rights to defend your family, please, if you could give $5, $10, $1, it doesn't matter. Anything really helps. Honestly, I know we're all fighting the cost of living right now. So I understand, but anything helps, honestly. Even if, think about this, if enough people listen to this show and even donated $5, say 100,000 people get this, and they can give even $1. That's $100,000. Seriously, $1. Can you do $1? Can you get 100,000 people to do $1? Anything. Let's help this guy out. He needs it. He deserves it. Honestly, nobody should be on trial for protecting their child ever. It's sad that we even have to have a conversation about this.
Right.
But Donnie, you've actually, now this is something you've been working on, and I'm just going to come in hot with this stuff. Did you know that your taxpayer dollars are funding Homeland Security to raid cockfights? Yeah, it's a true story. Your taxpayer dollars are funding Homeland Security to raid cockfights and people in the game foul community. Not like we don't have pedophiles walking the streets or, murderers, rapists, anything to do with hurting people or taking their stuff or violating property. No, we're going to spend taxpayer dollars so Homeland Security can raid the game foul community. Take it from there, Miss Donnie.
Yeah, you guys, let me give you all a little backstory. One big thing about this whole animal rights movement, a lot of people say, well, I don't like cockfighting. I don't think that animals should fight each other. I think it's barbaric. It's so terrible. First, I will say they're not your birds. And second of all, whenever the government or animal rights people are involved, that's when the real cruelty happens. And that's when they massacre and kill those birds cruelly themselves. Property that's not theirs. So I want you to understand the mindset of this movement and the government working and colluding with them. What they're using is this term. Have you heard of speciesism?
No, but please enlighten us.
It's like racism, but towards animals, where people think they're superior to animals. This is a belief system. I'm highly put into the veganism, not the vegan diet, veganism beliefs, as like your whole life is controlled by what you do, not using any animal products at all. Can't use animals. Some of you guys are vegan and own animals, but with veganism, you're not supposed to own animals either. So what they do is they have this hierarchy. Well, humans and animals are the same. But if that's the case, then why does the government and these NGOs have authority over me and tell me what I can and can't do with my animals? So therefore, you have created a whole caste system that puts us beneath animals. So when the government writes a law regulating animals and animal welfare and animal rights, there's actually not a difference. When the government can dictate what you can and can't do with your own property, that means they own your property. Even though they don't feed your animals, they don't take it to a veterinarian, they don't do anything for your animals, but they can tell you what you can and can't do with your property. With that being the case, none of y'all own your animals. It doesn't matter if you're a cocker, doesn't matter if you raise cows, sheep, or anything. If the government says, I think you're doing something wrong to your animals, they will come onto your property, they'll seize them, and they may even just kill them without even going into a courtroom.
And they do that. That happened here in Michigan. I believe it was last year. It might have been the year before. It's hard for me to remember these days, but there's a case in Michigan where they said this woman was hoarding animals. Okay. She had barn animals and dogs and cats and all this stuff. Now, they actually showed videos of what she had there, and it wasn't like a sad Sarah McLachlan commercial. All those animals looked fed. They looked like they were doing all right. They might have not have been like pristine living conditions, but the animals were taken care of. And the state said, no, you can't have all these animals. And rather than just, and I'm not saying that confiscating them would be right and rehoming them if that's how they felt, because I believe that the woman was taking care of those animals, because nothing I saw in those videos showed any different, other than they might have not have had the greatest pens or whatever to be kept up in. That's what they might have got. But instead of, if they were very worried about the livelihood of these animals, they didn't take them and rehome them. They slaughtered all of them. They killed all those animals. That happened here in Michigan. And so,
yeah, so this is,
if it's happening here, it's happening everywhere. They're doing that same thing everywhere. They're saying you are not a viable pet parent, or whatever you want to call it. But instead of taking care of the pets that we're trying to protect, we're just going to kill them. And it happens all the time. This shit happens very regularly all over the United States.
And so the next part of this is let's go back to where you're talking about. And so Mississippi and Alabama are misdemeanor states. Theirs is more of a fine, right? Slap on the wrist if that happens to you. There's an organization called Animal Wellness Action. The owner's name is Wayne Purcell, and he used to be with HSUS. But you may have heard during the Me Too movement, he's one of those ones who was touching on folks and women and stuff, and ended up having to resign. Yeah, these people are forcing their morality on us, and look at their backgrounds, right? So, so he started Animal Wellness Action, and they lobby and they work with another organization called Shark, ran by Steve Hendy. They fly drones over people's private property, take pictures and videos, put their address and their coordinates on the internet, and then tell their followers to go and call and harass the sheriff's department to go and investigate them. And I'm going to tell you guys something. With the media, they're also on their side, because you guys will never hear a positive story about anyone on a gang foul. They're all bad. And they compare them like to the cartel and money laundering and sexual problems. And I'm looking at the background of the people making these accusations, and it's like, you guys are talking about yourself. But so Steve Hendy, Shark, will surveil you and follow you around and stalk you. Guys, this is all happening over a chicken, crossing state lines. That's actually criminal. And the government is using them to get information without getting a lawful warrant, because there's a lot of this stuff happens without a warrant. They have these people who say, hey, we want laws to make you a criminal for spectating at a cockfight. But yeah, you guys come in undercover spectating a cockfight. We're going to have equal application of the law here. And so the biggest issue with me when it comes to all this stuff, a lot of people don't know what the Animal Welfare Act is. So a lot of times they will charge you for conspiring to violate the Animal Welfare Act. The federal government has no jurisdiction in Mississippi or Alabama, because the Animal Welfare Act states that you cannot supersede state law. So HSI and the DOJ has no jurisdiction at all in Mississippi or Alabama or any other state that doesn't have a felony charge for cockfighting. The other piece of it is Brooke Rollins, the USDA person, is the only one who has the authority, or someone in her department who has authority to initiate these investigations. So we're going, and you're breaking your own laws that you're trying to enforce on other people. Not only are you conspiring to violate the Animal Welfare Act by cockfighting, the government itself participating in cockfighting, and then also it's not your jurisdiction. It's not the FBI's, it's not the DOJ's or HSI. But the thing is, they're enforcing a bill that they try to pass that didn't pass. The Fight Act would have given the DOJ and FBI this kind of stuff, this kind of authority in a sense. It didn't pass. It was introduced in April of 2023. I'm gonna come back to that date. Remember that date. It was introduced in April of 2023, and it takes 2 years. So January 1st, the law didn't pass in the House. Boom, it's done. But they keep on advertising it as if it's still going on. But instead, now they went to the Senate to introduce the bill. And guess which Republican co-signed it? John Kennedy. With Cory Booker, the Democrat. I'm talking about this. It's a uniparty. There's a uniparty.
Wait, and didn't, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I heard somewhere along the lines that Rand Paul had something to do with all this stuff too. Or at least PETA.
Well, I don't know about this. I don't know about this year, but whenever Rand Paul, I know some libertarians trying to get mad at me because I brought up that he was a PETA hoe. And then they're like, well, he's actually being libertarian. He's cutting off the government paying for funding for experimenting on animals. Well, the thing is, listen real quick. This is not about funding anything because they want to be funded themselves. They're asking for money themselves, right? So this is not about saving money. It's about doing the bidding of other organizations and ideologies. These ideologies are against vivisection. They're against medical research and research with animals. So therefore, that's why they did it. So when I say, oh, Rand Paul, I'm not a fan anymore, it's because I see that you have taken the ideology of socialist and we're using the excuse, oh, we're cutting the funding on this. The other thing is when it comes to, it's not even just Rand Paul, but I haven't seen anything recently, by the way. Nancy Mace, she's another one. Oh, and she's a proud PETA hoe. She got pictures on Twitter with her PETA thing and puts her name on every animal bill. And I know that Nancy Mace has received money from Animal Wellness Action, and so has some other representatives. Either they get it from Animal Wellness Action or they get it from HSUS. By the way, HSUS is writing kill orders before a warrant is signed. And one of these states this happened. So basically HSUS said, who is a non-government organization, said it's infeasible to rehome these birds. So you're going to have to kill them all. And it's the fault of the cockers. And they come in and they kill everything. They smash the eggs. It's about getting rid of these birds completely. It's not about protecting the birds, clearly, because they've been advocating at least for 40 years to make it a felony in every state and get the federal government involved when it comes to cockfighting. And you know what? How many facilities have they built to rescue these birds? Every bill is a kill order on these ancient relics. These birds have existed before Christ.
Right. And you know, not to put a tinfoil hat on, but I mean, kind of, sort of, but not really. The fact of the matter is the state doesn't want you to own any kind of farm animals whatsoever because they don't want you to be self-sufficient. They don't want you raising chickens. They don't want you, hatching eggs. They don't want you having eggs. They want you compliant and reliant on the system. So you are tax cattle to the system, buying all your meat from the store. They don't want you owning anything that is out. They don't really even want you owning dogs and cats at this point, but they really don't want you owning livestock. That's why almost every single city and town has some sort of ordinance against people owning chickens. I can't own chickens where I live. I can't even own hens. Some places say you can have chickens, but not roosters. I get that because they're loud and shit. Okay. But anyways, but they're saying you can't have hens or anything. And that's because they do not want you feeding yourself or feeding other people in your community without being taxed on it. It's so crazy. It's the same thing like prostitution. Really, in theory, if you look at it, it's almost the same thing. So this is going to sound bad, but whatever. I don't care. A girl can get paid thousands of dollars to get pounded 6 ways from Sunday with a bunch of dudes on camera. But if a woman wants to do that in a hotel room, it's a problem. Why is that a problem? Because they can't tax that woman in the hotel room. They can tax that porn star. It's the same thing.
And another thing too, besides just the tax part, it's about controlling. If you think of the game fowl community, they haven't. It's not a commercial breed. You can't raise them commercially, right? So they have preserved these features of these birds. And for example, a lot of hens don't sit on their eggs and raise their babies. That's been bred out of them. But when it comes to the game hens, they're mamas, and they're very good mothers, very protective mothers as well. And so they haven't bred that out of them. The game fowl community builds their own things. They buy and barter and trade from each other. It's kind of already a decentralized situation here. So it's hard for them to kind of regulate it and control it in a sense. So, and a lot of times too, these cockers aren't just their fathers, their wives, their children. And they, by the way, they try to bring the children in and try to say that it's child endangerment and child abuse for their family to continue their tradition and their culture. When, like we said, look at what's going on with pedophilia. Like you care about really what you don't care about kids. You just want to control these people and you want to make sure this tradition dies in America. And so when I hear about these different cases locally, across state lines, across the United States, and for me, it's like, well, it's just nonstop. What's the solution? You know, these people keep winning and winning, and they're so bold and proud. You can go look online. Wayne Pacell even said after the raid on May 3rd that I think his article came out May 6th, and he said, this is good because Mississippi hasn't updated their laws. So yes, this is why the federal government needs to pass a fight act so the federal government can come in. They are so cocky and bold. They say these things. You can look yourself. And Wayne Pacell, I said, let's go back to 2023. So Politico, I think a couple years ago, had let it out that what's this? I can't pronounce his name, guys. I'm hard with English names. That Swedish billionaire, his last name is spelled Wyss.
Weiss.
Yes. And so you know how the right's been talking about this leftist billionaire who's funding the Democrat campaigns and their leftist agendas. He's giving them all this money through these shell companies. Well, Wayne Pacell's organization in 2023 received $1 million in 2023. And the only reason why we know this,
roll that back. 1 million. What did he get $1 million for?
One of Wise's shell companies gave Wayne Pacell $1 million. That was almost all of his money he got that year. And so we got foreign money influencing laws in Congress, influencing laws at the state level, and law enforcement. And by the way, this is not just they have documents out. They're training your prosecutors, they're training law enforcement, and if you start paying attention to the pattern, they're training them. And you have another organization called the Animal Legal Defense Fund, where they fund prosecutions. Let me tell you, I think it's Virginia, but for sure in Washington, they're funding the AG. I didn't even know you could donate to the AG. That sounds like bribery.
Are you talking about Pam? They're donating to Pam?
I don't know if they're donating to. I don't know if they're donating to Pam, but that's not public.
Are you talking
if
about
they are giving,
are you talking about the state AG?
The state, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, so this is a lot of money being going around, a lot of some shady business going around. This is some serious RICO, and I'm trying to like think. We do a lawsuit, you can't. It's almost impossible. So many people's names and stuff that's on here. It's very corrupt. But let's get back to this foreign money, okay? Remember that guy Shark, Steve Handy, who likes to stalk people and surveil people? Well, that same year, Wayne Pacell gave him $50,000. And in his tax paperwork, his whole thing says, I go and surveil and spy on people and do investigations. And by the way, none of these people are licensed investigators. They're just nonprofits doing what they want to do.
Wow. This is, it's so, well, first off, I think it's insane that the federal government is going after the game fowl community so hard, using actual Fed agents where like really something like we're talking about right now could be dealt with under local police or, village police or whatever it may be. You don't need the feds to deal with all this, but I get it, but you kind of pointed something out to me though, when you said the Homeland Security was raiding the cockers. That is kind of a Spanish descent pastime or whatever. So what they're doing is they're going They're going and looking for foreigners is what they're doing, so they can boot them from the country. That's essentially what's happening. But the fact of the matter is the stuff that they're doing is something that could be dealt with under local police. Not that I want them doing that or don't doing that. It doesn't matter. It could all be dealt with by local police. Instead
of what happened is they used the Animal Welfare Act. Okay. And how that was created, it was created in 1966 under Lyndon B. Johnson and that Congress. They passed the Animal Welfare Act. And the reason why they claimed it was to protect property owners. They were saying that research facilities were kidnapping people's pets and experimenting on them. Again, that's a local issue, but that's why they introduced the Animal Welfare Act, because they know they can't get an amendment to give animals personhoods and rights, right? That's not going to happen, and it would invalidate the Constitution if they did that. So let's go this way. Let's go run to Congress and create laws, and then over time, they've made criminalize this, criminalize that. So what they've done is use a commerce clause. What people don't understand, and then Congress doesn't understand, or they do understand, but they're just liars. The Commerce Clause, when you go look at the federal papers, their intent for it was stated. James Madison stated that the intent for the Commerce Clause was to protect trade between states, because under the Articles of Confederation, states were putting up tariffs and putting up barriers, so it would make it harder for trade to happen within the states. So that's why they centralized commerce. Under Madison's explanation. Under Hamilton's explanation is because they wanted to build trade relationships with foreign countries. Nothing in there talks about regulating private property, going after agriculture. There's nothing in the Constitution that even mentions animals. So they have given themselves this power through the Commerce Clause. If you look at the Article 1 of the Constitution, you look at what's their enumerated powers Congress has. Congress actually doesn't have much power to write any laws, period. They have what they have already, what is considered laws, but instead they've extended their power and they've abused the Commerce Clause to go after anything in private property. And another thing is, let me tell y'all something: cockfighting doesn't cross the state line. What they'll use is, some people drove from this state and they started cockfighting. Well, you have a right to travel. You have a right to travel with your property. That's not engaging in commerce. They didn't mail that bird and ship that bird. They drove. If they are going. And another thing too is, if you get pulled over with a cock in your car, they're going to accuse you of cockfighting. Like, you had a cockfight in your car. You know what I'm saying? It's not funny, but it's just like.
I could take what you just said to the next level, but I'm not going to.
Oh my, I set myself up. I have a lot of roosters.
Over was actually about cocks. I'm going to be like, I got one for you, motherfucker. But anyways, I digress. We're going to back off that right now. But listen, Donnie, we're talking about all this stuff, and it reminds me. It took me back of a book that I read 2 years ago for the first time. About 2.5 years ago this time. I got real sick a couple years ago, and I had nothing better to do but read books because I was laid up. I had my insides cut out. And one of the books I read was No Treason, The Constitution of No Authority by Lysander Spooner. Wow. Was that something else? And was that something that completely blew my mind? And by the way, the book is so short that I read Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard in the same day. It was the most base day I've ever had in my entire life, honestly. You read Spooner and Rothbard in the same day, it's over. You know what I mean? You're completely radicalized at this point. But
definitely.
This is a gentleman, Lysander Spooner. Look, actually the flag behind me, I didn't sign shit. That comes to play. I purposely put that there. That's how much I love Lysander Spooner, is I have stuff like this. That came from Anarchy Wear, by the way. They're awesome. Love those guys. But anyways, he wrote this book, and it was published in 1867. Not even 100 years after the United States of America became a country. It became a thing where, the good guys overthrew the bad guys. King George got put in his place, and that was that. 1776. And then in between time, there was a war, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. There was a war in between there too. Now, Lysander Spooner comes up with this. He write it's an essay, really. The book itself, it's right here. Look out, it's skinny. It's like 50 pages at best. You can read it in an afternoon, okay? But it's short and to the point. But
well, I will say this: if you read it with purpose, right? Read how you can apply it and use it as a solution. Besides, just reading it to absorb the content, right? Because he's actually got gems in there, right? He got solutions on how we can possibly solve our problems, and for us to stop consenting and come out of her, my people.
Right. And the whole book itself is based off consent. Really, he is worried and being very vocal about what was consensual between the government and the people the governed themselves, and how there's actually no contractual agreement whatsoever between the two. Now he writes this book, and I worked hard on this morning, and I did cheat, and I used some Chat GPT just because they're probably better with words than I am. But I'm gonna break this book down for you in sections, because the book itself is broke down into about 19 sections, I believe, 18 or 19 sections. They don't even call them chapters; they're sections. Now, the first section is this, and these are just some bullet points that I came up with, and we'll go over it. The Civil War showed that the United States government rules by force, not consent. The North claimed that it fought to preserve the Union, but this meant compelling people to remain under government they didn't choose. Spooner says that government truly rests on consent of governed. Force should never be needed. And those who refuse allegiance, like seceding the states, cannot be called traitors because there is no valid compact bound them. Well, let's dig into that real quick, because number one, the Civil War was one of the most lied about things that we've ever been told. The Civil War had nothing to do with freeing slaves. Number one, it did to a point. Let's be honest here. It did.
No, they just used they used us. That's what they did. They just used us.
What? Yes. So, long story short, Abraham Lincoln did the Civil War to not only collect taxes, but we were told that he was going to be the great emancipator and free the slaves. It had nothing to do with freeing slaves. It had everything to do with getting them out of here. Really, he wanted to deport black people. He didn't want the whites and the blacks mingling at all. So what he wanted to do was free the slaves, quote unquote, but deport them back to Africa or Liberia. I believe Liberia is in Africa, but Liberia in particular, he wanted to deport all these people because he didn't want them mingling with the whites. So that was Spooner's first, hey, fuck the government type thing, and he talks about that a little bit in the book, but there's more to that, but I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, and I want to point out something too. I know some people made mistake, like, oh, Spooner supported the South. No, not necessarily. But he said that you can't force someone who didn't agree to, in the first place, to do something. And I want to point out something in history that happened that I don't really hear people talking about. Both the North and the South, if you did not fight their war and you ran off and hid, they killed you. So nobody on either side had a choice. And so this was forced on us. And another issue is just like with Revolutionary War, they pretend as if it was just the North versus the South, when you have other countries who were involved and had an interest and was financing both sides of the war. So, they win regardless and things like that. But with Spooner, when he's talking about force, he actually gave solutions, not necessarily in this book during that time frame with his discussion on slavery. He had said to train and teach the slaves how to talk, tutor them, read, write, train them with firearms, and that's the fruit of their labor. So that they take the landowner's house and their field and stuff, because they aren't the ones who put the work in. It was the slaves, and he even said they should be shot and chased down by dogs. Um, and so he was a strong abolitionist, and supported, people being free. And he, I believe he also brought up this as well when he was talking about there's people, human beings who are here who did not get the benefit of the Constitution. A lot of people don't even have the right to vote. If you don't own land, you don't have this, you can't even participate in deciding who's supposed to represent you. He basically points out the fraud. Exactly.
But the funny thing is, and you brought that up, is that, and we need to actually paint a picture of Spooner. Like, he was an abolitionist, but he was also a lawyer, and that knew the laws and understood things differently. People who understand the law kind of understand things a little differently, especially when it comes to natural law. He was a natural law guy, and natural law.
He has a book on that too.
And the law. Oh my gosh! Actually, the funny thing is here. Let's see how much I love Lysander Spooner. Natural law.
I know that's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my dog, dude. Like, for real. But he understood that conscription was slavery. Like, people were forced to fight in this war. It wasn't like it was either do that or die. And you had to take the chance of die anyways, or maybe live, and they even put the black people to war. You're going to earn your freedom, kid, type shit like that. All conscription is a form of slavery. If you're forced into doing something you don't want to do, when it comes to the state, that is slavery. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Any type of conscription, I mean, even the people that were conscripted in World War II, that's slavery. That, and that was the last time. No, I'm even Vietnam. They were still conscripting during Vietnam. That's slavery. They didn't consent to doing that. They were taken. They were kidnapped and taken and said, hey, you're going to murder for the state or you're going to prison. That's no agreement. That's no contractual anything. That is garbage.
True. And Buds, God warned the people who are begging for a king that this was going to happen. Think about it. Where your sons are going to be used for this, your daughter's going to be used for that. They're going to take this much of your money. They're going to take the best part of your flock. The God warned us that people begging for a king, begging for a system, this is what's going to happen. And people don't listen. And it's like when we come down to Lysander Spooner and how he's talking, I don't really believe he has religious. He has written on religious, but he doesn't seem to have a religious institutional religion that he follows. But it's interesting how the anarchism kind of lines up with Jesus in this sense, because it warns us against get out of the system. You don't worship the system, because a lot of people worship the system. A lot of people depend on the system. And then I think it's gotten to a point where it's so hard to convince people, unless they read things like Lysander Spooner or other people's works, that everybody, I think almost every single person, needs something from the government. Either you need the government to force your personal beliefs on other people, or you need food stamps, Social Security, retirement, a job. A lot of people depend on the system for something somehow. And also they have us depending on this fake money, these reserve notes. They're worth nothing. We've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, that we're working for nothing, absolutely nothing. And our labor is way more valuable than some paper that you can't exchange for anything. That's why again, you have eggs, livestock, firearms, ammo. Those are things of value that you can exchange for goods. That's why the government wants to take them. The government thinks they own all your property, so they can come and just take anything that you have. You don't have those things, then how are you going to barter and trade? So what if the world ends tomorrow and there's only paper money? That happened in another country. What was that again? Was that in when the money was nothing? Was that Germany?
Well, oh man, don't get me going.
I'm not. Yeah, I know.
So I was trying to avoid part of this, but we'll get into it a little bit. Everything that you're seeing in the United States today was happening in Germany pre-World War II, which is why World War II happened or begun, without saying too much, because that's going to be for a different show. I don't want to get my account nuked today on my first show back. But yeah, everything that you're seeing today within our system, whether it be, you know, the monetary system, the media, the corruption in government, this was all happening in Germany pre Adolf Hitler. Okay. And so Chris Force,
You know, too.
Chris Forstner says,
it actually been going on for. So the other thing is, like, it's been happening even before that, right? I think governments have been doing this for a very, very long time. And in a sense, too, gold, right? What can you eat gold? Are you gonna build your house with gold? Are you gonna wear gold? Like, how's it, you know what I mean? Like, what is actually something of value that we can fix certain things? So when you think about United States government and they said, okay, we got rid of this king, but then turn around and give us a new king and act like we were free. Y'all gotta watch that Jones Plantation. I'll leave it right there.
You know what? You bring up a solid point, because judging by this book right here, No Treason, the Constitution and No Authority by Lysander Spooner, was America ever free? Because I'm not too sure that it was. If he was writing a book about this, not even 100 years later, was America ever free? Or has it been crony capitalism and socialist light since the very beginning? And because, you know, the winners get to write all the history books, we got fed a line of garbage. Because the way I see it at this point, if a gentleman was talking about the Constitution not being a legal binding contract between the governed and the government itself, not even 100 years after the country's inception, I see that as we were probably never free in the first place. We might have had freedoms with permissions, and we still do to this day. You can be free if you have money. Like, let's be honest here. You can have this right if you pay a licensing fee for it. You can have this job if you pay a licensing fee for it. For instance, I'm self-employed. I have to pay fees to the state for being self-employed. Isn't that something, right? Isn't that something? How is that freedom? It's not. So this has been going on since the beginning of this country's, you know, time. Have we ever been free? That's hard to say.
I will say, I feel like we've never been free, right? And we know we had that discussion. I said, remember, I told you he was a guy who sued Georgia who didn't live in that state. And I believe it had to do with paying him for his work. He ended up winning his case. So the president at the time was still George Washington, right? So we have the Congress, the states scramble to protect themselves, and they create the 11th Amendment, which stated an individual couldn't sue from another state, couldn't sue the state, or a foreign country couldn't sue the state. But the United States government has reinterpreted basically as if you couldn't sue the state, right? So the state can't be a defendant. And so that was under our first founders. And also remember the Whiskey Rebellion, which was considered money in gold back then. And then the government comes through and says, you know, we're going to, well, they wasn't going to tax them on it. And they was like, no, you're not going to do that. And then the government sent their military after people. So, and this is under Washington. So this has been an illusion that we're free. This is an illusion. Another thing is, I'm not trying to get all religious in a sense again on you guys, but back in the day, they always use a god, right, to say this is where my authority comes from. They use something that says this is where my authority comes from. The Constitution is where these people get their authority from, correct? But they don't follow it. That contract has been broken. It's been broken since it was first inked. So we have as citizens, for me, and this whole religious thing for me, it's like when Jesus says, come out of her, my people, or you will share in her sins. America is a part of the beast system. All these countries around the world are a part of the beast system, and they want us to leave it. I'm not saying move to another country. We ain't got nowhere to go. It's authoritarianism everywhere. You can't even go to Antarctica. So we come out of the system. We come together. We build covenants, right? We build our own contracts between each other because we have a right to have contracts. The government is not supposed to infringe on our personal contracts. And I said we build covenants. We build an interest in each other's property, not that we say if you're on a thing with me, right? A covenant contract, right? You have your property, you own your property, none that's mine. Same with myself. I have my property, own my property, none that's mine. But how the system is set up, you have to go get a government approved lawyer to represent you. How we get around that is we represent each other. We have certain people who know the law the best they can, our constitutional rights. And then we say, hey, we have an interest in each other's property. So if the government comes in and tries to take your property, buds, I'll be like, hold up, what are you doing? I have an interest in that property. You have to go through all of us if you're going to take his property. Contracts, man. I don't know why I didn't think of this a couple of years ago, but these kind of things we can do to protect our property and our rights. Think about the Freemasons, even though not from the bad guy stance, but look at how those kind of secret organizations have built their own parallel countries or societies that they the government can't break their contracts. You know what I'm saying? So if we were to do that, not to be evil, right, but to be a way to protect our rights, our religion, and there's a covenant, and you can come freely and leave as you want. It's freedom of association. You don't have to be forced in a contract. But we start building contracts protecting ourselves and our property, and we start standing up for each other. And they'll say, well, you don't have standing in court, because in Article 3 court, it's cases and controversies between humans. And if me and all of us who are listening today was in some covenant together in a contract, we could protect each other's property without them saying, oh, you're not a lawyer, or you don't have any standing. I do have standing. We have a contract that we all have an interest in each other's properties. And so we're protecting it from the government, NGOs, and anyone else who wants to mess with us. I'll pause there.
No, that's awesome. And that's really the way it should be. Like think about this. Okay. I've spoke about this a million times on many shows. Murray Rothbard wrote a book called For a New Liberty, and he spoke of a stateless society in Ireland in the 17th century that lasted 1,000 years. A stateless society that lasted 1,000 years, and England came through, obviously, and tried to take over, and they did end up taking over, obviously, but it took them a couple centuries to do so because there was no governments to make a deal to end war. What people don't understand is that, like, how most wars end is through some government backdoor deal, handshake, stuff like that. It's not who bombed the fuck out of somebody else or whatever. Sometimes it is, but for the most part, it's some deal where usually the smaller country ends up taking it up the tailpipe, and whatnot. But there was a time where people policed the land, and they knew the laws of the land, and they had their own citizen police. They had their own citizen jury, and it worked. It worked for 1,000 years. That could still work now, but like we're in a different time where like people are so dependent and relying on the state, it makes it really hard. Now to move to the second,
and we're all divided. We're all spread out across the country too.
Yes. Now to move to the second part of this book, the second section, the nature of a contract. A contract. Wait. What was that?
Wait, 1 second. I was going to read something to him really quick after that contract part. And I'm trying to find my dang thing, but I might just have to explain it off the top of my head. So in 1789, there was a Judiciary Act that passed, right? That created the lower courts after the Constitution had passed in 1787. So then they came with the Judicial Act. And so in Section 35 of it, you know how they say counsel in the Sixth Amendment? It doesn't say lawyer. It doesn't say attorney. It says counsel. You have a right to counsel. So when you go back to the Judiciary Act, it actually distinguished between the two. It says a defendant or person has a right to manage their own case and choose their counsel of their choosing. They said counsel. And then it goes over to the state has a right to manage their own affairs, right? But their person has to be learned in law. And that's when the lawyer thing, an attorney. So that burden was only put on the state. That was never put on the people. So they hijacked and they remade the word counsel into lawyer or attorney, where there has never been an amendment to change the Sixth Amendment to lawyer or counsel. So when, besides just the covenant and protecting property, we all have a legal right to protect ourselves and represent ourselves, pick whatever counsel we want to without having to hire somebody who's a lawyer. Because one of the big things me and you were talking about is all these plea deals and these lawyers not wanting to go to trial, not helping people. Look at our conviction rates in America. So it means our lawyers are doing a really freaking bad job with those kind of ratings. And so when we look at it this way, if we start standing up, civil disobedience, right? You start being learned. You start advocating for other people. Like you advocate for someone in court. You can't say, oh, you can't come advocate because you don't have a license. You're not a state approved attorney. But you're actually denying that person their rights for counsel. And when you push for a plea deal, you're supposed to have a jury trial if you're dealing with the courts. You have to have one. It's built into the Constitution, not just in the Bill of Rights. It's built into the Constitution. So there are all these cases where they're doing plea deals. These are invalid. But that would be a whole can of worms to open if we were to go back through all that.
Which is what they do. Like, unfortunately, I've been a part of the legal system. I was not a good dude in my 20s. Everybody knows that who knows me. And I've been vocal about that on my show. You grow up, you learn from your mistakes, whatever. But I do know this. Say you get yourself into some legal issues and you have to go to court. You don't have any money, so they appoint you an attorney. That court-appointed attorney is going to do nothing for you except tell you to take said deal that the judge or the prosecutor offered you. Okay, they're not going to fight for you whatsoever. They're going to say, take this deal. It's the best we can do and run with it. And then you get stuck with all kinds of legal fees and probations, whatever, jail time or both or whatever it may be, to where, like, if you supply your own attorney and pay for it out of pocket, they're a little more inept to fight for you or maybe take it to trial and stuff like that. I've seen it firsthand. Unfortunately, I know how it goes. And every time I personally had an issue, my paid lawyer was much more helpful than my court appointed. Oh, let's check the comments real quick. David says,
I will say though, really quick, you can pay for a lawyer, but I've seen in my experience in the livestock or game fowl community, the lawyers don't really know how to help. I don't think they know how to help, nor do they want to. They think you're guilty, right? So even if you pay for a lawyer, they're still not helping you and giving you plea deals. In the animal world, in a sense.
Well, and I mean, I'm sure it still happens. I just, from personal experience, I've seen it, and I have buddies who've been in trouble. And every time the court-appointed attorney, comes in there and says, we're gonna make a deal for you, it's not a deal. It's really not. And a lot of times, like, people are in these situations for victimless crimes, which makes it even worse because the state takes a bunch of money from you, possibly locks you up for something that you didn't even hurt anybody or take their stuff. It might have been possession of marijuana or something, depending on what your state is. It's kind of all ridiculous, and it's very much overreach because a lot of these laws aren't defending life, liberty, or property, and that's the only thing the law should be defending, period. But
and it actually violates it also violates Article 3 of the Constitution, where courts are only supposed to be for cases and controversies between humans. So the state can't be a victim. It can't have standing if you haven't done anything to a state. These NGOs or any other organizations, they can't be victims. Animals also can't be victims because they're not in the Constitution as persons. They're property. So that's another route you go with that. But the thing is vices aren't crimes. The Constitution does not even allow for vices to be punishable as a crime. So I know your whole catalog.
That is another Lysander Spooner book right here. Vices are not crimes, and no, they are not. Sorry, I had to do it. You said it, and I had to do it.
I'm glad you did.
You guys,
but my bad. You're getting back to Spooner.
Spooner was the man. But so there's like a bunch of sections, and I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm going to read a couple right now. Section 2, nature of a contract. A contract is only valid when all parties voluntarily agree. Here, I need to get my light better. The Constitution is called a compact, yet most Americans never signed or consented to it. One generation cannot make binding contracts for unborn people. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so Buzz, that's what I'm saying, the lead ruling over the living. The dead is still ruling over the living.
They are, which is one of Spooner's arguments that blew my fucking mind when I read it, because he said, hey, how is this a contractual agreement between the government and the governed when none of us were alive when it was written and all the people who wrote it are dead? And that's a valid point. It really is a valid point. And I believe it was it Hamilton? You might know this better than me. Was it Hamilton or Jefferson that said that the Constitution should be written every 20 years or every generation?
Thomas Jefferson.
That was Jefferson.
Are you smarter than a politician? Woo!
But no, seriously though, like you know, how? Like how? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. This isn't a contractual agreement, and times change, situations change, everything changes. So why shouldn't that not be amended or rewritten? But it should be. Now, caveat being, it needs to be amended or rewritten or caveats made by the people, not the government. Let that caveat be there right now, because that's my biggest qualm with one of my biggest qualms with the Constitution is how is that protecting us when the government's the only one who can make changes to it? We can't. And that's supposed to be that document, that piece of parchment paper is supposed to be what protects us from them and keeps them in check. And it's not. It's really not. The government violates the Constitution every single day. They do whatever they want at any given moment, and most people cheer it on. It's insane.
They do. And I think it's because they may have read it or studied it in school, but they didn't study it or learn it to apply it. I'll use myself as an example. Before I got into politics and I started, doing local stuff and speaking engagements and supporting candidates, like I got A+ in history and government college, you know what I'm saying? Texas government. And I'm like, I'm feeling myself like, who does that? And so then I realized when I'm looking at things and I'm watching certain people do things and they're advocating for stuff, and I'm just thinking, yeah, the government can do that because they've been doing it. But that's not the case. You have to actually go and look and see what their limitations are. How do you apply it? So, for example, when I say, what's the best amendment to do this? Fourth Amendment. When we talk about the Fourth Amendment, when you're driving your car and a cop is saying, hey, let me check your make sure you got nothing in your car. And it's like, well, if you can't show us, then you must be doing something wrong. The answer is no. The answer is always no. You do not have a warrant with an affidavit supporting it. You may not check my vehicle. You may not. And it's not because I'm hiding in things. I have a personal right to my privacy, and I don't know you. You want me to go to your house and check out your stuff and see what I want to take with me? Absolutely not. And then you could put something in there. So my answer is no, you may not go through my vehicle. You need to have a probable cause, affidavit, sworn under oath, a judge signs it, and then you could search my vehicle. But you can't just be driving around and saying, oh, can I check your vehicle? If they do that, that violates due process. And then nothing that they search can be used in your case. But if you don't argue that before trial, they're going to use it anyways. And a lot of times they try to use that information anyways, but you have to get that information suppressed and dismissed regardless if you did anything wrong or not, because a lot of times they're just going after you for exercising your rights. And then you have a right to exercise your rights to not be in fear or be punished for doing so. So when it comes to a vehicle, like how you apply that when you go to court, you can say it like that. I'm going to try to change how I say that a little bit because I talk about this all the time. So I'm making sure it makes sense when I say. Does that make sense how I said that?
It made sense to me.
Okay. So and then on your person, if you're walking around and they're like, hey, they're checking your pockets, they're going through your backpack and all that stuff, they have to have a warrant.
That's right.
If they take you, if there's a warrant without your name on it, you've been kidnapped.
Now, you, Miss Doni, had pointed me out to something that I had never heard in my entire life, and it kind of goes with what you just said. Now, when the government takes something from you, they're supposed to pay you for it. If they confiscate your goods or anything that you own, they're supposed to pay you. And you know more than that than I do. I learned it from you, so you can take it and point everybody in the direction that needs to understand why this is.
All right. The good old Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment to apply it to the states as well. So basically, if the government takes anything from you, they're supposed to justly compensate you for it. They can't just come and take your weed. Actually, think about it. If you take your weed, they need to pay for it. Now they've committed a crime. That's property. They could try to say it's contraband and it's not, but it's property. If the government takes your house, think about your property taxes. The government comes and takes your house. They took something from you, so they need to pay you for it. So if they take my chickens, if they kill my chickens, they had to write me a check and pay for it. They can't just go around taking things. That's stealing. That's a crime. And so if a judge signs a warrant and they take your firearms and all that stuff and then say you're a criminal, you need to pay me for my property. Or it's just stealing.
That I'd never heard that. I'd never heard anybody say that in my entire life until you. And then when you said it the first time, I kind of looked at it and I looked it up and I was like, holy shit, this chick's onto something. You know what I'm saying? So actually, thank you for pointing that out to me. And I'm glad that we're at 433 views right now. Wow. You guys are killing
What's up,
me.
Guys?
Like that is.
Well, I will tell you something else. No one talks about the 7th Amendment. That's a civil side, right? 6th Amendment's criminal, 7th Amendment is civil. So whenever they're going at you, when you have civil asset forfeiture, start using this, right? If it's over $20, I don't care about inflation. The Constitution says $20. You are allowed to ask for a you're allowed to ask for a jury trial. So you can ask for a jury trial. So people don't know that you have to request it when you file something, or if you want to counter them. It's, no, I want a jury to decide on this matter, not the judge. 7th Amendment.
Man, and this is, this is why what you do is so important to the liberty movement, is because you actually understand the Constitution, you understand the law. Whether my beliefs on the Constitution, are for or against it, it doesn't matter, because when it comes to the law right now, as we see it, the Constitution matters because they use it.
Think about this though. Right. You got to know your enemy. Arm yourself with wisdom. You got to have your shield to protect you. You have to have your sword. So if the government summons you, the beast system summons you, you got to know how to expose it, put it on trial, right? So I have a lot of battles between lawyers that don't know who I am. I'm like a ghostwriter in a sense when it comes to lawyers and judges and things of that nature. But most people don't know their rights. And so if when they come in and say, hey, this is illegal. Mississippi's only a misdemeanor state. Why are you guys here? That's superseding the law. The Animal Welfare Act says this, and it's only supposed to be the USDA. They get kind of like conflicted, like, wait, what do we do from here? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and they try to hide. It's kind of like as soon as they get light on them, they try to shrivel up and hide or make an excuse. So they really put the hammer down and say, I'm the authority here. And so if you guys let's start learning and studying. If y'all want me to work with me to learn and study these things, let's do it, because we all need to arm ourselves. And my whole thing is, think about the Bible in a sense, right? You got to call out the Pharisees, got to call out the hypocrites. Look what happened when Jesus called out the hypocrites. Yes, we know what happened after that, but it was very powerful. The people started turning away. They changed their mind. They realized we've been fooled. We've been lied to. And think about it. The government is full of criminals. It's criminals. They got the 10 commandments in the courtrooms, but yet they're stealing people's property, killing people, being jealous over people's property and taking it for themselves. It is a very wicked system out there, you guys. And once you really start seeing how evil it is, you start realizing it's not just like a David and Goliath situation. You can think about Daniel and the lions in the den. When you're in that courtroom, you're like Daniel, right? With the lions surrounding you. And people, the more you know, the more confident you will be. And then how to apply it and push back. One of the biggest things I want to say, if you end up in a courtroom and they're trying to do your arraignment, and are you guilty or not guilty? You gotta start challenging if they even have jurisdiction to even have you in that court.
Thieves and tyrants, all of them. I like it.
I know that's right.
Every single one. Now we're working on an hour and a half right now, and I know you got to feed your chickens, so we got to try to wrap this up. I don't think we're.
Oh, I fed them this morning, but
through all
I fed them this morning.
I had a nighttime chicken feed too. I thought, but
that's when it's night shift when it gets a little darker, so we can make sure there's no predators like killing our chickens, like raccoons and coyotes and government officials. I'm just saying.
I'm kind of bummed there's no chickens in this show right now because I know they're in your house. You post Vic.
Do you want me to grab them for you? Do you want me to grab them?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be back. Let me grab them. Let me see if you'll let me grab them.
Chickens. We got the chicken lady. She has over 100 of them, y'all. So
quit snitching. The government. Shh, quit snitching.
Oh my gosh. They'll come to my house before they come to yours, I promise. No, but for real, at the end of the day, the book, No Treason, The Constitution of No Authority by Lysander Spooner is an absolute must for every liberty-minded person or everybody who's looking for an ideal outside of what the Matrix is offering. Because what the book pretty much says is, I didn't sign shit, I didn't consent to shit, and I'm not obligated to pay for their shit because nobody consented to any of this. None of us did. We didn't consent to taxation, and they took it anyways. We don't consent to our taxes that are stolen from us to be sent overseas. Nobody consents to that, especially when we have people living on the streets here. Like, if we're going to be forced to pay taxes, we should be taking care of our own. I mean, the golden rule is take care of your immediate family before you start taking care of others. And taking care of your family is also not being $38 trillion in debt and still sending money overseas. That is absolutely asinine, and it's really not fair to anybody who pays taxes into the system whatsoever. We should be, the whole America First thing is trash, and I'm sick of fucking hearing that shit. It needs to be America only. Until we are a giant, massive utopia, not a single penny should leave these borders. Not a penny, not one. But we sit here and we deal with it. And a lot of people will say, hey, peaceful noncompliance, peaceful noncompliance is the way. Hey, look, I used to be all about that, but we're in a situation now where peaceful noncompliance is not going to work. And I'm not going to tell you to do anything or not do anything. All I'm saying is that peaceful noncompliance, we're well past that. What we need to do is start joining forces in our own community. Turn your TV off. Turn that shit off, because they're pitting you against your neighbors and the people you're supposed to be locked arms with. Like, really, in theory, Doni and I shouldn't be having this show according to the powers that be in the media, because I'm white and she's black. We're supposed to hate each other. That is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life and ever heard in my life. Why am I supposed to hate somebody that I don't even know? They want me to hate my neighbors. They want me to hate my neighbors who I've never even talked to in my life because they think differently of me. I guarantee you this. I promise you this. If you were to shut the TV off and turn this noise off, and you were just to go out and start talking to people in your neighborhood, you would find out that you have a lot more in common than you do different. I promise you that. I guarantee it, because I do it every day. I live in the city, and I talk to my neighbors. Oh boy, here we go. There it is.
This is Blue. She looks a little rough because she's getting her feathers back, because during the summer they lose some feathers and they get their feathers back in the winter. But she's my baby. She's the easiest to catch. The roosters are like, no. You want to say hi? You want some food?
Woo!
You want a treat?
I don't know how they talk on train. Oh, I did it. Yes.
Mama.
This is awesome.
Hey, Mama.
Wait, man. I was just while you were gone, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I was telling everybody they want us pitted against each other. They don't want you and I having conversations because I'm white and you're black. This is what the system wants. And we're doing the opposite. I'm going to talk to all the black people and all the Mexicans and all the people that Trump wants to deport. I'm going to talk to them all. I'm going to talk to them all. Because you want to know what? We're all fucking human beings. And we are, we're not going to agree on everything, but I guarantee you this, that we didn't sign up for any of this, what they're offering right now. And what we need to be doing right now is getting together with our communities, growing gardens, figuring out who's the best tomato grower. And they're going to be in charge of tomatoes. Who's the best potato grower? They can be in charge of that. And so on and so forth. And you can trade and barter amongst yourself. Like, hey, Donnie, you got some chickens, okay? And I just killed a deer. And you want some of my venison, and I want some of your chicken. So I'm going to trade you 10 pounds of venison for 10 pounds of chicken. Guess what we just did? We just took the state rate out of all of it.
Right. And here's the other thing too. When we mix our labor, right? We mix our labor when we raise animals or we grow food. And, John Locke talks about that in his trustee, I can't remember now, but it was a property section of his trustee. This is the book. And once you mix your labor with everything, that becomes a part of you. So when the government comes and take your property or takes anything from you, they're taking a part of you. This girl is an extension of me.
By the way, your labor is your property. Your labor is your property. You yourself, your own person. This is what people really misconstrue and don't understand. You yourself are your own property. And as long as you're not hurting someone, taking their stuff, or violating someone else's private property, it's none of anyone's business how you're living your life or what you're doing. But to even piggyback more on how you can get out of this matrix and live an anarchist lifestyle without the state. Look at you with that smile on your face. You love these chickens. You're definitely not.
Yeah, I do.
No, you're not eating that one.
No. Here. She doesn't want to be on camera. Here, guys. There you go.
But the fact is that the state has taken away the sense of community. They take, I grew up in the 80s, in the 90s, okay? And you could go to your neighbor's house and be like, hey, I need a cup of sugar. I need a cup of milk. I need something like that. Nowadays, nobody wants to knock on their neighbor's doors. Nobody wants to talk to their neighbor. Nobody wants to do anything because the media and the government has said, hey, these people are not okay, and whatnot. And that's not how it is. We as human beings are meant to take care of ourselves and not be compliant, reliant on the state. As a matter of fact, that is what you should be doing no matter what. And I'm not knocking people in need. I understand there are people who need help. And the fact that, that the government and the media will say, well, if we don't have this program or that program, like the school lunch thing pisses me off. Think about this. They'll be like, well, if we don't have this program or that program, kids are going to go hungry. Look, man, nobody in this entire fucking world is going to let a child go hungry at school. It's not going to happen. You guys need to get off that shit. All the school has to do is put out some sort of public service announcement and say, hey, we're a little bit short on helping the needy kids or whatever. We need some help. And I guarantee you that parents in droves will be throwing money at that in order to feed these children. Knock this shit off. Or even people what was that?
Did you see that story with that one lunch lady who got in trouble because she was giving kids extra food and giving kids free lunch because she couldn't see a kid starve? And she's like, I'm admit to that. I can't see a kid starve. Yes, I gave kids extra food and I gave them free food.
Yeah.
I can't remember what state that was in, but yeah.
And people will do that. Nobody's going to let a child starve. And I understand there's still senior citizens and stuff that are relying on the system and stuff like that. And part of that is a cultural thing. Back in the day, parents went to live with their children until the end. Okay. Nowadays, everybody throws their mom and dad into a wrinkle ranch and says, have fun. They don't want to deal with it because they've made us, society has made the human race so selfish that they can't even deal with their own parents. Right. And so, but on the other hand, there's people that need help. but you don't need to be helping people by the rule of a gun. Like, if I don't pay my taxes, I get, kidnapped, put in a cage, and or killed. You don't need to have people ruled over the force of the gun to help somebody. Like, you could literally fund people in need in your community, not only through charity, but through state lottery. People forget state lotteries are a huge cash cow, and you could do a lot of things with it. Unfortunately, the states have ruined the lottery, because the lottery money was supposed to be for the schools, and obviously it's not going there, because otherwise schools would never be closed and whatnot, right? But there are situations where, like, and think about this. Let me throw this caveat in there right now. We are taxed more than we've ever been taxed ever in the history of all things. And my man, Derek Wills, AKA ANCAP Air, wrote a book called The Liberty Solution, where he pointed out, and I believe that book was published in 2022. So his research was probably during 21, 20, somewhere like that, I would imagine. So correct me if I'm wrong. I can ask him if I'm wrong. I will say I'm wrong. He's a good
Jeff wrote, and I think Jeff is writing something, or he wrote something about it, because he was talking about how it's more tyrannical now than back during the Revolutionary War. You know what I'm saying? I don't think people realize that.
Yes. And we'll get back to that in a minute. But the point I'm trying to make is, it's that people were donating to charities more than ever, while we're being taxed more than ever. Imagine a society where there was no taxes. We wouldn't have a lot of this stuff, okay? And for the people who believe, what are we going to do about police and fire? Like, anarchists are not saying we don't need amenities like that. We're not saying that. All we're saying is that we could pay for it ourselves. Like, you could take your local community. Hypothetically, where I live, there's 1 million people, right? There's 1 million people. And you need to pay for police and fire for between 1 million people. So then you break it down per household. It's X amount of dollars to pay for your police and fire in schools. Okay, we'll throw that in there. And then if you can't come up with that, we have our state lotteries and charities to back that up.
Well, back in the day, back when the Crown was going on, they did have sheriffs, right? They didn't have police that we have today. The police exist to protect corporations and rich people and push that's where that came from, actually. These slave catchers. That's where the police came from. The police was not here from the beginning of our new found country. That's a new thing that started happening when they had cops. They depended on sheriffs at first. Then they started having police. So if you look, but by the way, police and sheriffs aren't mentioned in the Constitution either.
Yeah, I wonder why. I'm sure that's not on purpose.
No, but because go ahead, sorry.
But even so, you still, like, so if you're talking, anarchy and stuff like that, and you want to nullify yourself from even your own state, or your own county, like, you could break it down and nullify yourself from your own county and be like, we're not going to comply to this stuff. But you also need not only your police chief or your local police involved in your sheriff, you need all those people to be able to back you up on said things, just in case the state says, hey, since you're not going to comply, we're going to send our henchmen over here, like they did with Ruby Ridge and Waco and such. Because those people were people who want to be left alone too, and they got slaughtered for it. So you need to, in order to nullify yourselves from the state, there needs to be a certain order of things that need to happen, and so you can protect yourselves. Like, if you don't have the backing of your local police and sheriff, and you're trying to nullify yourself from the state, you're probably going to have a problem. But I mean, and in an anarchist society, that would be a totally different story. But we are not an anarchist society right now. We're far from it, actually. We're the complete opposite. To be quite honest with you, the guy that we fought off in 1776, King George, this is what we have here today. This government is King George's wet dream. He is like, wow, he's probably mad that he didn't have this much power back then.
He didn't think about it like that.
Oh my God, think about that. Seriously, bro. Like, there's no government that has been bigger than this. I don't care if it was Rome or anything like that, but just like any other big government, look at what happened to Rome. Endless war and endless debasement of money, and they went down, and we are headed that way right now. This is why we need, not just you or, my listeners, whatever, we need to start focusing on community to combat what's happening with the tyranny at the federal level. It has to be a grassroots movement from the ground up. As my boy Mike Decentralized would say, love that guy to death. But we need to start doing that shit, or we are in big trouble.
Another big problem we have too, Bud, is that our states have sold us out too. I would say maybe back in the day there would have been a time the states would have defended their people or defended, and limit the government. But every state is dependent on the federal government, takes money from the federal government, is on the federal government's teat, and the states themselves have violated the 10th Amendment because we don't have, the state's protection from the federal government.
And that's, and that's the whole purpose of the 10th Amendment in general, is the states run as they see fit. But now they have the states so compliant and reliant on said things. And the craziest part about all this is the red people, the Republicans that say, taxation is bad, and we shouldn't be taxing all this stuff. The red states are the ones getting the most federal money. And that's a fact. Like, that is a fact.
Laughing.
More money than blue states. And it's a weird time to be alive. We say shit like that, and then we have a sitting president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, who on paper is a New York Democrat, tried and true, man. He is a Democrat, man. He always has been. He always will be. Look at his stuff on paper, and the Democrats hate him, and the Republicans love him. Where have we gone? By the way, I was originally a Republican. I'm a never Democrat. Never in my entire life have been a Democrat.
Same.
And so, which that is wild. Donnie, you're black. You're supposed to be a Democrat.
See, what happened was I was working when I was 16, and I was like, Mom, Dad, what's up with my paycheck? They took a bunch of my money. So I was like, how do I fix it? They go, that's just how it is. That's taxes. I go, well, what? So and then, Ron Paul was another one that I really liked too. But yeah, I was paying more attention to politicians who weren't trying to take my money and my paycheck. And I was like, well, conservatives, they're not trying to take my money, but they got their own thing. They're, I wouldn't say conservative. I'll say Republican. Republicans, they wanted to take, make all these rules. They're war on drugs. And, and it's like, I'm not interested. But no, I've never been a Democrat. Never voted for one. I'm not going to say every Democrat's the same, because a Democrat in California is different than a Democrat that's in Kentucky, right? But myself personally, I'm looking at history, and I'm like, why would Black people vote for them? That's how I was as a kid and a young adult. Why would Black people vote for Democrats? Why? And then I realized the whole Lily White thing happened with Republicans, right? So I was like, oh, that's why Black people went back to Democrats, but not me. And I grew up in the country, so
that's awesome. But we're almost at 2 hours, so we should wrap this up. Donnie, thank you so much for being a part of my first show. You made this comfortable.
No, thank you for having me.
I was so nervous. I really was.
I told you we're good. We're on the phone talking and chatting. It's come natural. We probably should have our own show too. Just saying.
I mean, that could definitely happen. I'm all about networking. I want to grow this into something that, just takes over the liberty movement. But we're going to be real with you. We're not going to be those liberty people who says, hey, in order to save the republic, we need to vote Republican. I'm never going to fucking do that to you. And I know you're not going to do that. We went through this. We went through this with the Libertarian Party in 2024. I am no longer a libertarian. I haven't been for quite a few years. I love the libertarians. Like there's certain libertarians I do love. There's so many good people in the movement. So I do feel bad when I trash the party, but the party needs to be trashed. They're a mess. But there are some very, very, very good folks out of that libertarian party that should be paid attention to and listened to and stuff like that. And but as far as everything else goes, how can we find you? How can we, follow your work? Let's get into all that.
Well, I actually have my Twitter account private. And it's pretty much going to stay that like that, but it's Donnie the Misfit if you can find it. And then my website is on the right there. It's to go into my Substack. Now I'm really sorry, you guys. I don't write as much and do videos as much because I'm so busy with these cases. Literally before we came on, me and him talked about like 2 or 3 different cases that I'm working with, and so I'm going to force myself to put out more content on those other platforms because it's educational, and I got a lot of exposing to do. We touched on foreign money, right? Going on animal stuff and money coming from that. There's a lot more we got to unpack, but this is only a short amount of time. But I will promise I'll start doing it, you guys. I just chickens and the government keeps me busy, federal and state level. And my website's right there, and Donnie the Misfit. And follow Jeff Charles for great stories because he gives you lots of content.
Yeah, that whole story I read about, the Aaron Spencer. Yeah, that was his story. He wrote that. He's a very good writer. You guys should follow him. Jeff Charles is amazing. He's a good dude. I hope you're watching, dude. I didn't see you in the chat. He probably is not. He's busy. That guy's he's busy all the time.
Yeah, he might be. I think he might be watching it, but Blue said she needs a shout out. She said, "Hey, thank you for being a special guest of honor." You see how good she is? She's been in my arms the whole time.
Yeah, I told you could bring the chickens. I was hoping the dogs would come down here, but my wife came home, so I'm chopped liver when she comes home. That's they
okay.
But y'all, you guys, I am so humbled. At this point, we're at 473 views. This is my first show back in like 10 months. You guys, thank you. There's going to be a lot more content to come. At the moment, I don't have any sponsors. So if you guys want to buy me a beer or a shot, cash at me, Buds of Reality, just like my Twitter handle, man. I'll take it, man. Any help I can get. I'm going to keep doing this shit no matter what because they're not going to stop me anymore. There's no more record labels. There's no more people trying to tell me what to do with my own show. We're going to do this shit. It's going to be raw, honest, unmerciful truth. And by the way, every single one of you fucking grifters out there, you better beware because I'm coming for you too. Peace, love, and liberty, y'all.
Peace.